Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm joined by my son Richie
Hello.
for a review of Paul McCartney's album Memory Almost Full. So, don't have it on vinyl. I think it cost the earth to get on vinyl, and we're awaiting it to be reissued, of course. So we'll make do with the CD. So this is the full 13-track album, plus the three bonus tracks, plus an interview with Paul, recorded at the time of the release. So I listened to it in preparation, as did Richie. So just a bit of background before we get into it. Produced by David Kahn, I think that's how you pronounce it. And the follow-up to Chaos, released June the 4th, 2007, reached number 5 in the UK, number 3 in the US. And that actually was a better showing than Chaos, which did number 10 in the US and number 6 in the UK, I'm reading. So, interesting. So,
Yeah, considering it was an album which was apparently full of, outtakes from Chaos, that's quite interesting.
yeah, I think I was reading some of the tracks were recorded before the Chaos sessions even, including That Was Me, and then they kind of got put to one side and then they recorded Chaos, which is a decent album, but I think I prefer this one. You prefer it slightly?
I much prefer this album to Chaos, yeah.
It's interesting. I know some people out there are big fans of Chaos, and that's fine. But so it's just our opinion. So we'll kick it off with the title track, "Dance Tonight." And I just think it's this simplistic genius from Paul. I mean, it really should have been a massive hit single. I mean, by 2007, the singles charts not that important, but just a beautiful example of how you can create a great song out of a few chords.
I think he kind of wrote it deliberately to make a kind of single. And he wrote it apparently in his kitchen as a kind of foot tapping song, so it's quite interesting. I think one of his granddaughters or something really enjoyed the song and started dancing to it, and he thought it was quite a good song and wrote it on the ukulele.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And in the interview, he was saying that he got the car to drop him off a few hundred yards away from MPL's office in Soho Square, and he went into one of those guitar shops in Denmark Street, and the guy in the guitar shop had a second-hand ukulele, which was strung in a weird way where he couldn't work out how to play it, so he had to get it home and work out the chords, and then he wrote the track. So that's a good story and a great opener. Ever Present Past, I remember when I first heard this on the radio thinking, what is this? I thought it was a bit too modern, Paul trying to be modern, but he's done a lot worse than that since, and I think this is actually
I think it's a catchy song, yeah. And the video for it is a bit, I don't know, it's not one of the best videos Paul's ever done because it's a bit too modern for me, and him trying to be all kind of youthful with this dancing.
Yeah.
But it's a very good track in terms of the music. So yeah.
Yeah, and the chord structure reminded me of the track "Don't Get Around Much Anymore" from the Russian album, just slightly similar there. So then we move into "See Your Sunshine," and I think this has quite a remarkable bass line.
Yeah, it's got a very good bass line, yeah, and it's one of the tracks, when I'm trying to think of this album, it's one of the tracks I tend to forget, but it's one of those kind of tracks Paul does, which is kind of refreshing to me with a good bass line, because his latter albums don't feature as much, good bass on it as his earlier work did, and this is one of them where he actually showcases his talent on the bass quite well.
Yeah, and again in the interview he was saying he just did a really overly fussy bass line as a joke almost, and and he said, "I'll change that," and the producer said, "No, it's great, keep it." So they kept it. And then we move on to "Only Mama Knows," and I think this is a great rocker, kind of reminiscent of the great rockers from Back to the Egg for me, and more successful than subsequent rockers such as Not Such a Bad Boy. I think this really powers along, and supported by the full band, and good lines about being stranded in an airport lounge, albeit fictional. So you like this one?
Yeah, I think it's quite good lyrics as well, considering it's a rocker. I mean, and it's got an interesting kind of intro to it with the strings, like kind of haunting strings at the beginning. And quite a few of these songs actually on this album have an interesting intro, which is, well, at least experimental for Paul, I think, in general. I know he's experimental anyway, but especially on this album, I've noticed that.
Yeah, I agree. And also the range of the vocal for this song fits his voice, so he's not straining to hit the notes as he is on some latter day tracks. And in 2007 his voice was still in pretty good shape, so it wasn't much of a problem. You Tell Me comes next, and this, again, in the interview Paul was saying this was about remembering one's childhood and remembering all the sunny days, and was it really that good? or did we just forget the bad bits and You Tell Me, and other people said it might be about Linda as well. I just think it's a really nice track.
In terms of track listing, I think it fits well. It's like after a rocker, kind of bring it back a bit to a kind of slower ballady kind of song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, we don't think much of this cover, I don't think.
Yeah, I have no idea what he was going for there.
And also, when he was promoting this album, it was a little bit disappointing that he sold it in Starbucks. And
Really?
I thought this was a bit of a kind of slippery slope if he's starting to do that. And also, even worse, it was given away free with the Mail on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what he was thinking, because that's not really the way to get to a number one album.
Yeah, because this is the first album I remember like growing up as like listening to this album coming out, like in the car. Can't remember anything before this, so it's not a bad first album to know.
I think you could do a lot worse.
I mean, as a release.
Could do a lot worse. Where have we got up to? Mr. Bellamy, I think this is a really fun track, really good piano riff, totally fictional character apparently about a guy who was maybe about to throw himself off the ledge and commit suicide, and we got the psychiatrist coming along and trying to persuade him not to, and whereas it's written like a story according to Paul, so I thought it was quite amusing. I mean, not amusing subject matter, but quite well delivered.
I like the backing vocals as well, the low kind of vocals Paul does. I didn't even recognise it was him actually, to be honest, when I first heard it. But the Easy Does It part.
Yeah.
Parts.
Excellent.
I think it's excellent, yeah.
So far the album has been pretty good. And then we get Gratitude,
Start, yeah.
which I've written Oh Dear in my notes here, and I think you've written something similar, so
Yeah.
I got nothing good to say about this track. I think it's Paul singing in a forced Oh Darling type voice, which doesn't really suit the ballad.
That's I think the only part which actually kind of works on it, where the verse is kind of slightly better than the kind of main hook of the song vocally, with the gratitude repeated all over again. That's a very, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of that part, but the verse parts, he's kind of trying to do his rocky voice, and it works in some places, and some places it really just doesn't, to be honest. So
Yeah.
it's probably the worst track on the album, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. So then we move into what Paul has described as a medley, and in the interview he said it's the first medley I've attempted since Abbey Road, while conveniently forgetting the Red Rose Speedway medley of Hold Me Tight, Lazy Dynamite, Hands of Love and Power Cut, which I don't think he rates too highly himself, unfortunately, because I love it. But anyway, Vintage Clothes is a good way. I wrote some notes on the lyrics somewhere. Check the rack, what went out is coming back. So it's about changes in fashion and what we are as vintage clothes and what we wear as vintage clothes. I can't remember, but it's. I think it's a really fun track, and I love it.
Yeah, good sentiment as well. Don't live in the past. Quite good.
Yeah.
Lyrics. Yeah.
And then it's not quite a medley, but it finishes on the same note as the first note of that was me. So it comes in really quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a great kind of
good segue.
Segue, yeah. That's a kind of medley, as he calls it. I don't know. I'm not sure if it actually is one, but kind of is, I guess.
So for me, that was me as the strongest track on the album. I think it's absolutely brilliant, reminiscing about playing on the Iris, playing Conkers, whatever. I can't remember the words, but reminiscing about his childhood and early teens or whatever.
Yeah, and it's got a great bass line again. Like he's going up and down the fretboard very
really effective bass line.
Way, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So 10 out of 10 for that one from me.
Mm.
Feet in the Clouds. I think it's a really nice track with some lovely backing vocals from Rusty and Abe and Paul all joining in there.
Yeah, it starts with a nice acoustic kind of intro. The only part I don't really like in it is the kind of ending where they have that kind of, not a cappella, but that kind of vocal bit with the auto-tune. Not a big fan of that. I've kind of grown to like it a bit more now, but it's not the best part of the track for sure.
Okay, and then we've got House of Wax, where Paul describes the chords as not being particularly complicated, but having quite an emotive feel, kind of minor chords.
Very dramatic kind of piano intro there as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good song, and God knows what the words are about, but...
Interesting words for sure, yeah. I always used to think the Hidden in the Yard vocal was Pigeon in the Yard, for some reason. And again, like two great guitar solos on that track as well. I think the first one's very kind of atmospheric guitar solo, and the second one is it just goes all out. It's a very rocky guitar solo. I don't know who does it, to be honest, but I love that part. It's one of the best bits of the whole album for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like Paul to me.
No, I wouldn't say it's Paul, no.
So that thumbs up to that track, and then we've got the end of the end where he's confronting the subject of death, which is quite a serious subject matter, but he's trying to be somewhat light-hearted about it, saying, I want jokes to be told at my funeral, I want stories of old, and as he said in the interview, no one gets out of this one, baby. So when he played it to his kids, they were quite moved.
Yeah.
And he said, if my dad had played it to me, I would have been quite moved. So it's an okay song to try. I mean, I was a little bit in two minds at the time, and listening to it again the other day, I thought it was quite decent.
I think we'll be hearing this a lot, like on the radio after Paul
when he does eventually
passes away, yeah. And we'll like it a bit more as well, I think, because it's a fine track, but
yeah,
it'll grow in people's respect, I think.
Yeah, and then he's basically said he didn't want to leave the audience in depression at the end of the album, so he added "Nod Your Head," which is, in my view, a pretty weak rocker just to end the album, but he said he didn't want to leave the fans thinking, I never want to get back to this album again with that end at the end.
I think it's one of those tracks which is good for like a kind of jam session, but it doesn't really work as a recording as much, and it doesn't really fit into the album's context as much as either, because I think the end of the end kind of feels like the ending of the album, and then you get this kind of tag on at the end with Nod Your Head, and it's just a bit weird, I think, in terms of track listing, but it's not that bad.
It kind of reminds me of the last track on Driving Rain, wasn't that Rinse the Raindrops?
Yeah.
Similar kind of
I think
throwaway.
That's probably a better track though.
A little bit, yeah. So then we've got the 3 bonus tracks. In Private is an instrumental, and so is 222 an instrumental, and Why So Blue in the middle. I think all of them have merits, and I personally would have put at least, well, maybe, I'm not sure which one I would pick, to be honest, but I would have lost Gratitude and put one of these on instead, for sure.
Definitely. In Private and 222 or 222, those are probably the best ones out of was it 3 or 4?
Just 3.
Bonus tracks, it's just 3, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got, both of them got very good hooks and some kind of funky vocals on 222 or 222.
I think, isn't 222 almost an instrumental? Or
no, I think that's got those kind of weird, kind of funky vocals from Paul, which I don't know, I kind of enjoy those.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But In Private could have been on there. Nothing wrong with putting an instrumental on. After all, McCartney 2 and McCartney had instrumentals, and apparently the upcoming one is going to have instrumentals. So anyway, the only track I would definitely have lost off this one is Gratitude. It's hard to have lost, to choose another one to lose, to be honest. So maybe that would be the only change I would make to this album. So in closing, I think this is a damn good album, and probably the best latter day album
to date.
Best since Flaming Pie, at least, if not as good as Flaming Pie for me. What's your thing?
I would say the same, yeah, I agree with that, definitely. I mean, some people would say Chaos probably, but I prefer this album slightly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely better than Kisses on the Bottom.
Yeah.
And I think we both think it's better than You and Egypt Station.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
No real weak links apart from Gratitude. So anyway, just our opinion. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Thanks.